2024, one of the best years in history for quality video game releases. A wide variety of polished titles that strive to push the boundaries of their respective genres were released, defining new standards of what is possible in modern video game titles. Today I'm unveiling both hidden gems and games well recognized that deserve their praise, all to uncover which top games of 2024 made it one of the best years in gaming history. Hey, I bow! Come in a little closer, I need to tell you a secret. I review video games. The sheer number of phenomenal titles in 2024 made this the most difficult game ranking list I've ever made. It can be intimidating picking your next game to pick up and play with such a diverse library available. So to help with this, I compiled a list of game titles that blew my expectations out of the water. Kick back, get comfy, and get ready to uncover the best of the best, starting with the new best party game in town. UFO 50 might look like your typical party game, similar to Mario Party and Pummel Party, hosting a collection of small multiplayer minigames to enjoy messing over your friends with. But UFO 50 has mastered the art of deception, as every single game included in this package is an extremely polished game experience, weaving in notes of modern game design into simplistic retro game ideas. Selecting any game at random will net you an extremely high quality game title that could be expanded into its very own standalone release with how amazing and fun the gameplay is. This isn't 50 minigames, this is 50 unique fleshed out games in one complete package. Compare this to Mario Party, most of the games are great and well, some not so much. Don't get me started on the RNG games, and oh boy, another coin game. Half of the coin games suck! Let's highlight two of my favorite games and showcase how they cleverly work in modern game mechanics into traditional game genres. Mortal is a simple platformer with a twist. You have a limited set of lives and you need to sacrifice your players to progress through the level. You can do this with three abilities. First is by bombing to destroy blocks and enemies. The second is to turn into a stone block like Kirby to provide a platform boost. And my personal favorite is zipping across the screen like a dart, aiming for the bullseye to stick your body into ledges, making new elevated paths possible. This is such a genius, simple change to the platforming genre, putting a massive twist on how you manage your player lives. You are even able to collect more lives throughout the levels, having you choose between risking using your abilities to snag bonus lives or marching forward without them. Next up is a simple puzzle game where you must stay out of the line of sight of enemies by transforming into the floor tile colors, blending in. This seems simple enough, and getting all of the collectibles is a real brain workout, but just wait until the game throws in its signature twist by introducing roaming enemies. Now the danger tiles are constantly shuffling and not static. You will have to perform real stealthy heists to save your chameleon friend and not be immediately jumped on upon sight. UFO 50 deserves massive recognition for the consistent retro theme that it strives for. There are just so many old school nostalgic features, like being able to customize the menu themes, which even changes the background music. The only real downside to this title is that there isn't any 4-player local multiplayer games, and there is no online multiplayer for any of the games at all. I would wager that this is an intentional game design choice to fit with the retro plug and play theme of the game. Another great aspect of this game is that there are no tutorials explaining how to play each of the games. There's only a controls list. You just get thrown right into the action and you just figure it out. UFO 50's design aspires to show that truly quality games aren't overbloated with tedious repetitive content. Simple game ideas make the very best games every time. And if you're looking for, well, a quality game that isn't tremendously long and is as polished as the UFO 50 games, Animal Well is your match. This is a short but incredibly expressive title with some of the best world exploration I've ever experienced in a 2D Metroidvania game. The controls and movement of this title are extremely simple at first, but as you progress through the game you unlock quirky new gadgets to assist you explore new heights, like with the bubble wand, which makes platforms for you to climb up on, and the frisbee, which you can literally jump and hitch a ride on. Just as you are testing out your new gadgets, boom, you figure out how to utilize this new item in an area you previously discovered that you recall. Peak Metroidvania design. This game utilizes so many aha moments that it's got me feeling like Charles Darwin as I realized that the otters are afraid of fireworks and run away, allowing me to use my slinky, which they would previously destroy those little punks. The enemy and boss combat in this game can be intense and frantic at times, but there isn't a huge amount of fights present in the title. The game focuses primarily on world exploration. But where this game really excels at is the atmosphere. This game seriously captures the isolated and immersive tone of Metroid titles down to a T. T. While exploring the world, there is also a massive selection of collectibles to uncover, putting the incredibly creative array of items to use hunting down each and every single one. The only main downside I could rack my brain to find was that some of the puzzles were a bit difficult to discover entirely within the game itself, but this is such a minor setback and honestly speaks for how well laid out the puzzles are. If you're looking for a more combat-oriented game with similar remarkable world design to Animal Well, look no further than the 11th entry, Nine Souls. Nine Souls takes Metroidvania gameplay and cranks it up to the next level by adding in some of the most liquid smooth combat mechanics in a 2D game, while having outstanding world exploration and design. While exploring the vast and mysterious world, you can easily tell the developers really poured all of their souls into this game. All 9 of them. This game is the love child of Metroid and Sekiro, and it has all the satisfying combat features and challenging difficulty of a quality Souls-like game, combined with the wondrous world exploration of a Metroidvania. The best part of the combat, hands down, has to be the parrying system. Parries have been a great addition to Metroidvanias as of late, as seen in titles like Metroid Dread, but Nine Souls really hits a home run with combining its incredible combat with parrying to produce some of the most diverse controls in a 2D Metroidvania. Oh, and this is without even mentioning the visual presentation of this game. It is some of the most impressive I've ever seen. Crafting immense environmental design, detailed world exploration, and satisfying combat together results in a surefire winning formula. Unlike other games in its genre, Nine Souls doesn't have you running around backtracking and getting lost in its world. The map is intentionally very compact and linear, providing a very satisfying experience for jumping into challenging the next boss fight. For the negatives, the dialogue in this game can be a bit of a drag, especially near the start of the game. It almost feels a bit unnecessary and out of place for a game focused on fighting and exploring. But this does not hold it back from being a remarkable, complete, memorable experience. Perhaps you're just looking for a game to kick back and relax to. If so, the 10th spot, Balatro, will have you hooked. Such an extremely simple premise for a game, it will have you wondering, how has this not been made earlier? Roguelikes offer an insane amount of replayability by taking the player through a different journey with every single attempt. Now stop right there, combine a roguelike with the incredible variety of poker and you have a game that has near infinite possibilities. But wait, there's more. Balatro isn't done cooking just yet. You also have special Joker cards which provide unique abilities when decked in your hand. And to even add on top of that, you are able to buy additional tarot and planet cards, providing even more buffs to your hand types and even individual specific cards, turning them into different types. You are able to customize and play every single individual card in your deck, which you can view. I really love the presentation of ripping open a trading card like booster pack every time that you want to get cards. It's such a charming touch. With all these factors combined, every time you play Balatro, you are bound to run into new scenarios. It is truly remarkable.
Is that a gram? New card. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice. Look at that.
It's very cool, Bateman, but that's nothing. Look at this.
That is really nice.
The tasteful thickness of it.
Even the visual and audio styling of this game didn't need to go so hard, but of course it does, it has so much identity. It could have looked like Solitaire and the gameplay still would have slapped. Balatro of course accounts for this by adding in a lot of charm and identity into its presentation, aiming to knock every single game feature it introduces straight out of the park. Hearing and seeing the background backdrop and music change when opening planet packs is one of my favorite features of the game. There's also just something about games created by a single dev that gives it such a uniform and cohesive design down to every aspect. The only downside to this game is that it is not as expansive and story driven as other games on this list, but that's not what Balatro aims to be. It introduces a great scaling system by having blind rounds, which are essentially boss battles where you have limited or certain actions prohibited while having to hit a huge score bonus. These are really fun to nail. This game is the ultimate time killer, and it does not surprise me in the slightest that the mobile edition has already become one of the best-selling popular mobile games ever released. Well deserved. Just watch out for the Among Us crew cards. If you have burned through your daily Balatro run and want a game to draw you in with immersive story, then the number 9 spot Until Then will gladly step forward. Last year, I was blown away by the story writing quality of A Space for the Unbound. a side-scrolling narrative game heavily incorporating Indonesian culture. What I then didn't expect again is another title this year drawing me in with a phenomenal narrative-driven adventure centered around real-life culture inspirations, this time incorporating Filipino culture, in Until Then. Until Then is primarily a visual novel, resulting in significantly less gameplay than other titles in this video, but where it focuses on the most is its immersive story writing. The world, characters, and especially the emotive story writing is some of the most intense and immersive I've witnessed in a game. One of the most creative aspects of the game is how the writing is presented to the user. The game is composed of 3 primary parts, with parts 2 and 3 differing greatly from how part 1 is presented. It's almost very experimental. Without spoiling anything, it is a very bold and interesting perspective change. Visual novels are some of the most underrated games in my opinion. In my Best of 2023 video, I talked about how there has recently been a resurgence of high quality visual novels as of late, with titles such as The Great Ace Attorney Investigations, A Space for the Unbound, Paranormicite, Slay the Princess, and especially Your Turn to Die, really pushing the creative writing of the genre. It's great to see Until Then continue the trend by providing some of the best video game writing in its genre and even beyond. Maybe you're looking to unwind a bit after Until Then's phenomenal emotive story writing. I can certainly recommend a game that takes itself a lot less serious while still having amazing combat. You should absolutely not skip out on Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. The Yakuza series are some of the most creative but bizarre games ever made. I swear the developers of this series just throw darts at a board full of game genres to decide their next game. I mean, just check out the newest game release, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. They're genius. And Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth is absolutely no exception from this. The variety of gameplay in this title is second to none. It's astonishing. If they throw darts at a board to decide their game genres, they must be throwing the entire dart supply at the side game inclusions. Any side minigame you could think of is likely in this game. You could just do so much. Without a doubt, the most impressive attribute of this game, crazy antics aside, is the vast amount of fighting classes named jobs that you can uncover and play for each cast member. These jobs unlock new fighting skill trees for your characters, but none of this holds a candle to its absolutely crazy story. To really get a perspective of this game's insane writing, look no further than the game's first couple of seconds in its introduction cutscenes. Before we get into beating up anyone in the street, we are introduced to a car scene where 2 passengers are talking over a meeting to solve homelessness. Then the driver pulls over after seeing a man in the middle of the road. The driver then gets shot, the 2 passengers then get shot, triple tap, looting their necklace, which is then handed to the mysterious figure's boss, who then shoots him. Then we pan to an ant which is crushed by a client getting assistance from an employment contractor. The contractor tries to help the revealed ex-Yakuza client, but they get frustrated and cause a scene to leave. The contractor is then congratulated by their boss and heads out to get some food, but is then confronted by the ex-Yakuza for a fight in the street. Then bam, you're thrown right into the gameplay and you're ready to throw down immediately, straight as this game opens. It's really a great opening to the game. I really enjoy when games don't beat around the bush in the introductions and get to actually show you the mechanics as soon as possible. Why did I just list this entire scene? Well, other than how hilarious it is, it perfectly encapsulates just how amazing the Yakuza series writing is. You'll get whiplash from the sheer amount of randomness of the scenarios, yet find extremely valuable information and story clues in the scenes, and get really invested in some of the emotional scenes. I also just love how quickly you get into a fight at the start of this game. You start off in the workplace with civil discussions, and then you're throwing fisticuffs in the street. This game is absolutely full of surprises, and will have you questioning what the hell you just played at every single corner of this game entry. Next up, In Stars and Time shines with excellent storytelling and imaginative writing. Great characters? Check. Coverage of surprisingly mature writing themes? Check. Beautiful soundscapes and a fantastic retro style? Double check. Wow, full marks all across the board. While this game did technically release at the end of 2023 in late November, I still wanted to sing praise for how amazing it is, as I didn't play it in time for my 2023 best video. If you have been itching for a new game similar to Undertale and Omori while those new Deltarune chapters come out, In Stars and Time will satisfy your itch and blow your expectations out of the water, even more so than you thought possible. I really appreciate when a game isn't afraid to dip into more unsettling and eerie themes. In Stars and Time strives to have an identity that is purely unmatched by other games. The game tackles the concept of time looping in such an intricate and creative way, and bonus points for how it utilizes a monochrome color theme, yet stands out even more memorable and stylish than modern AAA titles with RTX on. There is just so much love poured into this game, which it just oozes out. This game does have a significant amount of dialogue, which may be a bit off-putting for some, but it pads it out with a decent amount of exploration and discovery in between a really fun battle system. For the downsides, the gameplay can be a bit repetitive with you running into similar trials throughout your journey, but with how well it's incorporated into the narrative, I think it works really well. This game is criminally underrated and deserves so much more attention than it has received. It tells a truly remarkable story with such charismatic characters. I just hope more people discover this hidden gem and get to experience the wonder of it firsthand. I just hope more people discover this game and get to experience it, well, firsthand. Oh boy, we've hit a loop here, let's move on. On to the next title, we have yet another underrated masterpiece with 1000x resist, and oh boy, this one is a real creative masterclass. The writing in this game is just on another level, presenting such a unique perspective of storytelling within a video game. It really feels like this is arguably presented in a way that's never been done in a game before. Never before have I ever experienced writing so mind-bending and thought-provoking within a game. It can honestly be a bit hard to exactly interpret exactly what is happening in this title, as it's so creative. For everyone that plays this game, I'm sure they'll get different meanings and experiences out of it. That's the beauty of it. The game has a very sci-fi oriented art direction, with vibrant neon worlds awaiting for you to journey through. There are also strong themes of horror within the story. The gameplay doesn't shy away from combining a blend of thrilling scenes with its bright, dazzling landscapes. It's quite a fascinating combination. One of the primary storytelling features of this game is being wound back in time into memories of the past, reliving them. These memory scenes can be a bit of a pain point for some, as the gameplay can be a bit repetitive with this storytelling, but it's easy to see that the primary focus of this title lies within its creative vision and what you make of it. More games could take a note out of 1000x Resist's page by implementing such a different narrative perspective into their world building and characters. Similar to In Stars and Time, and Until Then, these games have such interesting narrative techniques, easily earning them the titles of being the most underrated indie games of 2024, and I can't encourage you enough to go in blind and experience this game fresh as the developer intended. And hey, you can even select it as a card pack in Balatro. You just love to see indie developers shouting out and supporting other quality titles. If you're looking for another sensational RPG with unforgettable characters and a story crafted with passion and love, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is your pick. Father, I must confess, I am irrefutably in love with a fictional paper character. Maybe me and cardboard weed cutout lovers don't have so much different after all. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is my favorite game of all time, and the 2024 remake defines what a true to the original game remake is. The original Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is, in my opinion, near flawless. The character and stories are some of the best in any game I have ever played. Even if this game was released just as a remaster for the Switch, it would have been a fantastic title still in 2024 and beyond. Intelligent Systems really went all out in adding so much attention to detail and subtle updates into the game. One of the biggest issues of the original game is the tedious backtracking to previous areas, taking a significant amount of time which you really do nothing in. The remake attempts to remedy this by adding in a convenient warp pipe room which includes new pipes to chapter areas that weren't in the original, and even more fast travel pipes peppered throughout the world. On top of fixing issues within the original, so many quality of life features have been added without bloating the original experience, but rather enhancing them. Every character having their own unique dialogue text sounds rather than a uniform generic one, more detailed sharp textures for the overworld and battle stages, and one of my favorite enhancements to any game remake ever, being able to hammer every single NPC in the game. Seriously, this is just so unnecessary, but it's so great. There's so much attention to detail. Every single NPC now have their own unique animations. It's just the cherry on top. On top of the new stunning details and offering backtracking solutions, the best new feature in my opinion is the new enhanced music. Whoa, wait right there, Bao, I prefer the original soundtrack. Well great, you can equip the new nostalgia badge and listen to it in place of the new soundtrack. It's a great solution. The additions of the soundtrack is just a work of art. I mean, we have every single party member having their own unique theme song, almost every song having new melodies in their song structure, varying end of chapter themes, and arguably the best, each chapter having its own unique battle theme, remedying the repetitive nature of the original song. This is a remake soundtrack done right. By far, my favorite of the area varying themes is the new Pit of 100 Trials songs. The originals was almost comparable to a jingle and was barely a song by definition, just being a short repetitive loop, but the new remixes absolutely knock it out of the park with its dynamic percussion and mood. Such an insane glow up for a song that was originally so small and repetitive to work with. For fans of the original game, there is even additional post-game content, which I won't spoil, but it is so seamlessly integrated into the game it almost feels like it should have been in the original the whole time. The only real negative of this title is that long-term fans might be disappointed that not as much new content was added in comparison to last year's Super Mario RPG remake, but I would argue this game is already filled with so much already, it's not a huge downside, it's a complete game experience. If you're looking to play one single game from this video, I can't recommend this title enough. It's so easily accessible while still having so much depth and character. And psst, did you know the curtains rising and closing accompanying the ending jingle of my video is a reference to this game? The only reason it doesn't take the #1 spot is due to me not wanting to award a remake as the 2024 Game of the Year, but in my eyes, this is still my favorite game ever made. Moving from one phenomenal remake to another is Persona 3 Reload. If Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door was one of the best remakes of the year, Persona 3 Reload has a great shot at topping that throne. Where Paper Mario played it safe by staying super consistent and true to the original game visuals and mechanics without going completely overboard, Persona 3 Reload says, "Hey, throw that out the window. We are upgrading everything." The gameplay is tremendously improved. Battles are no longer a huge chore with the additions of shifting, which is similar to the baton passes in Persona 5, where you could swap to another teammate, and Theurgy attacks which charge over time, which allow you to unleash a devastating ultimate move. But before you're even thrown into battle, you'll already be hit right in the face by the oozing charm of style in this game. Every single aspect of this game has immaculate design. The menu UI, the battle intros, the speaking portrait animations. It's just so jam-packed with so much well-thought-out design. The only aspect of the game that I found to be a bit outdated was just some of the overworld area graphics. Some spots feel like they can be a bit static and not as impressive as everything else in the game. This game also shows its age a tad during the introduction with how long the intro is before you get into the actual game mechanics, so it's a bit of a slog at the start.
No way!
But if you can tough it out, boy, when you get into battle and ambush an enemy and have its going down playing, you really feel invincible over any threat you face. The music, of course, is absolute ear candy. I would easily crown this title as having the best soundtrack of the year. Some later entries in this list might have a more impressive catalogue and selection and more tracks in total, but Persona 3 Reload has the most soul and passion poured into its soundtrack selection, easily standing above other games with more tracks. It's often memed about this game that it is a $60 soundtrack with a game included, but the range of the soundtrack is truly unmatched. From the catchy vocals in the previously mentioned ambush theme It's Going Down Now, to the hauntingly beautiful lyrics of Color Your Night, there is no remake soundtrack as impressive as this. My personal favourite track is A Deep Mentality. It is just so catchy and dance-inspired, which is so rare for a game like this, or games in general, and it actually only plays one small segment mission in the game. Another incredible characteristic of the soundtrack is how the songs string together English words, but in a way that doesn't make sense typically in a sentence. My favourite example of this is the mall theme.
We've got some new stuff. Take your time browsing.
I don't know what I've never felt like da 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 means, but damn, I'm resonating with that vibe. And you know what? Maybe I have never felt like that way before. So real.
Marvelous.
The Answer DLC being released after the game is easily the biggest issue of this title, and it's really a disappointment even how repetitive and grindy the gameplay of The Answer is. Despite its phenomenal ending, it really should have just been included in the base game. The only thing that didn't change significantly is the story of this game, and I have to say, overall this is easily the game's best feature.
Oh wow, he looks like a smart one, unlike his owner.
Persona 3 Reload easily clocks in the most engaging storyline out of any games featured on this list, and that's even with the original coming out over 20 years ago in 2006. The range of emotions in this game is just so vast. You'll be experiencing hopefulness, then helplessness, depression, and an overbearing fortitude. For every uplifting experience, you'll also in turn experience true sadness and melancholy, which really speaks volume for its narrative. Persona 3 Reload is a tremendous narrative adventure, enhanced by the additional features in one of the best game remakes ever made. Now, maybe you're looking for the hardest hitting action gameplay of the year. If so, Black Myth Wukong will have you in awe of its cinematic beauty. Black Myth Wukong is essentially the result of perfecting the Souls-like genre. This game has a way of providing some of the most satisfying and smooth combat in any game. This game has you piloting your monkey main character using a stick to take down various Yaoguai, and I must say, beating down enemies with a stick is just so satisfying. The amount of skills available to unlock is truly staggering. You'll be able to customize your playstyle to exactly what you truly enjoy. On top of skills are stance upgrades which utilize your stick in unique ways, such as standing atop of it to avoid ground-based attacks. But if you rely on it too heavily, you could topple over and fall to the ground. It's such a great use of the stick. The whole stick combat system truly feels like a breath of fresh air. You can string together so many combos in a row as you rapidly spin around and hurtle your weapon and then deliver devastating final blows. This is truly the first stick stranding game. Summons are another combat aspect which allow you to channel demons to completely overwhelm your opponents. But by far, my favorite abilities are the Mysticism spell, specifically the Immobilize spell. This spell is similar to the Breath of the Wild Stasis rune ability, allowing you to freeze enemies in their place and dish out multiple combos on them while frozen. But where this game really enhances and improves upon Link's stasis ability is using the spells on main bosses and even being able to upgrade the ability to make it stronger in the skill tree unlock system. I'd always wondered, why didn't more games introduce a gimmick like stasis from Breath of the Wild? So to see it implemented and improved in Black Myth Wukong is such a refreshing sight. I can think of a couple of real life uses for this spell, that's for sure. Hold it! I can't believe I paused time and still saw that you haven't liked and subscribed yet. I'm going to be stuck here forever frozen without 90% of my audience even subscribing. What kind of hell is this? Please support the channel and subscribe. What's that the spell's about to lift? Well, you better quickly like and comment. Making meal prep faster. What did you think I was going to say? There is also nothing more satisfying than beating a difficult boss, winding up that final hit and seeing them ragdoll away in slow motion as you land that final blow. This whole game has such a breathtaking cinematic feeling to it. The boss fights, the scenic meditation spots, and phenomenal world design to really take in as you march forward. Hell, the intro alone speaks volumes for how cinematic this game is. Immediately it throws you into the action and straight into a boss fight, then bam, immediately into fighting your first enemies. This is a game introduction done right and one of the best tutorials ever that doesn't beat around the bush with a stick. The only real downside to this title was that it was slightly easier in my opinion than previous Souls-likes like Sekiro and Elden Ring's Shadow of Erdtree DLC, but this is very subjective. The music in this game is really solid too, but in comparison to Persona 3 Reload and the next two upcoming games, I would say this is one of the only aspects that it pales in comparison to. On the other hand, or should I say ear, the sound effect design is unmatched. This game has some of the best sound effect quality I've ever experienced, especially with its spatial positioning. You are able to precisely hear enemies snarl and talk to each other in the distance, and even scout out large enemy stomps as they heave through the jungle, with each step echoing in the distance before even physically seeing them. This is incredibly immersive. Black Myth Wukong pushes the boundaries of a modern Souls-like game with its unrivaled cinematic direction, thrilling customizable combat, action-packed boss fights, and overall presentation. There were only two games that ever so slightly managed to edge out Black Myth Wukong's snappy gameplay and world design. And one of those is Final Fantasy Rebirth. Final Fantasy Rebirth will go down as one of the best sequels to a game ever made. Final Fantasy Remake was already a fantastic game, but Rebirth just went out and improving every single aspect of it. The reason that this title stands apart from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Persona 3 Reload is the creative narrative changes it embraces, making an entirely new reimagining of the original story, not just a remake alone. One of the biggest features that this game loves to flaunt is its immersive open world landscapes. Over the recent years, the open world genre has flourished, but I've personally found that most open world games aspire far too much to be as large as possible, leaving big gaps of huge chunks of lands that are mundane and repetitive repetitive to explore, rather than developing an interesting landscape. Never once did I experience this in Rebirth. Rebirth's dense, packed world had me exploring all of its varied landscapes so much more than I would typically do in any previous open world game. The landscape is simply just interesting. There are a ton of named mini sections in each of the maps which are a blast to explore. Upon entering them, you'll see a name card of them, and even the amount of treasure chests and objectives to scout out. This is a godsend for my playstyle, as I just like to loot the areas and move on. I don't want to stay here for too long. As soon as I arrive, I can see what I want to do most, and then when I have completed it. Another aspect I really enjoyed are the treasure owls. You need to keep an ear out for their hoots to locate them, and then they will slowly guide you to areas with lots of valuables as you chase it throughout the sky. This is a great way to incorporate game design into the world itself. It's similar to scouting out monsters in Monster Hunter. It's great that the story also often splits up the group and you control different party formations and see how the characters interact with each other one-on-one and in small trios. There are some spectacular scenes with certain character combinations like Cloud and Aerith and Red and Barret, and you get to see so much more of these characters throughout the game's impressive world. Where Persona 3 Reload has overall the best story plot entirely, I easily stand by Final Fantasy Rebirth having the best character writing and development of any game made in 2024. On top of the exceptional character dynamics, the combat in this game is so varied that it can be a lot to tackle at first. You exclusively control one character at a time, but you will be forced to switch around to all of them at some points in the story. After you have a hand in playing each of the characters and their movesets, it actually becomes surprisingly easy to pick it up, despite how detailed and varied the skill trees are. Once you get the hang of swapping between team members in combat, you also have the ability to use limit break abilities and combination special attacks. This charges separately to the limit meter and activates some of the most visually amazing attacks in the game. There are also summon abilities which can be summoned with their own unique attacks and final finishing moves. Juggling and stringing together combinations of all these attack types while swapping between different characters is what really gives this game its combat identity. It sets it apart from other games like Black Myth Wukong, which focus on one character. One of my favorite aspects of battles, especially during boss fights, is when a teammate is bound, held down, and you have to quickly act to release them from their clutch.
It's coming.
Please help me.
This has been a staple of RPGs for such a long time, but having your primary character snatched away and relying on you swapping to another character to control to immediately attack them really ups the ante and puts on a lot of pressure. Cloud in particular feels so smooth to control, switching in between the light attacks in operator mode to the heavier hits in punisher mode, and then comboing in limit breaks, abilities, spells, summons, and combination attacks. All of these available options make this game have some of the most varied and diverse 3D battles in an open world game. Despite this game's adrenaline pumping action taking the forefront, there are plenty of wholesome and even funny interactions between each of the crewmates as you travel together across the lands. It really feels like a band of friends adventuring through an epic journey together. The soundtrack is just spectacular as well. While I think Persona 3 Reload had the better condensed and focused soundtrack, this game has an absurdly ridiculous catalogue of over 150 songs spanning 8 discs. The music never fails to match the thrilling action of the fights, invoke wonder while exploring the lands, and hit hard during the emotional scenes. With the game's immersive open world, incredible character writing, and catchy soundtrack, this game delivers a one-of-a-kind, unforgettable journey. Well, it's almost time. Before we cover my game of the year, there are a whole bunch of honourable mentions which I'll briefly cover, as this is already a long video, but any one of these titles could arguably be added into any of these top ranks. Similar to how the positioning of any of the games in the list I presented could be altered, the game variety of 2024 was just that amazing. Haunty is an action-adventure title following the journey of a ghost spirit, and it houses some of the most interesting and expressive art in an indie game title. Neva is a remarkable platformer centered around themes of companionship as you live out your lifelong bond with your wolf partner. This game has some jaw-droppingly good art design and is truly in a league of its own. Caves of Qud is almost an infinite game. There are so many possibilities for each run and how it can pan out. You will never get tired of playing a new journey. This game is the Balatro of world-exploring roguelikes. It is extremely refreshing how new it makes a classic text game feel. Windblown is an incredibly fast-paced roguelike with some of the most responsive and snappy combat in a roguelike game. When this game fully releases, it'll be truly a contender of the best roguelike of its year. Dungeons of Hindenburg is a compelling mix of a dungeon slasher combined with the peaceful antics of a village building simulator. The genre is super creative and produces a truly great game experience. Ants Took My Eyeballs is a charming roguelike that has great combat and design, but can get a bit repetitive with its limited gameplay compared to others in this video. Now let's move on to some of the more well-known games. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown shocked the gaming world as it was one of the most polished Metroidvanias to release in 2024, with incredible combat and exploration, a truly remarkable return for the series. Dragon's Dogma 2 has such a fantastic adventure narrative. This game really makes you feel like you're going on an adventurous trip with your fellow pawn teammates. The combat is snappy and clean, but the enemy and boss variety is just so hollow, making it feel like an incomplete game. And that's not even mentioning how poorly it is optimized for PC. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is the best game in the franchise since Super Monkey Ball 2. This game has some of the best level design in the series, but unfortunately lacks in multiplayer game variety and performance issues. Helldivers took the world by storm with its frantic action gameplay, and it truly offers some of the most fun third-person shooter gameplay of the year, but I just found this title to be more limited in gameplay compared to some of the others. Hades 2 is a worthy successor of its original in practically every single way, introducing a more magical theme to its Greek mythology world. Despite being in early access with constant updates, this already feels like a loaded game. The Plucky Squire offers one of the most unique storytelling presentation of any game in this list and some of the most charming visuals, having you control a hero popping in between a character book and its surrounding world, but it is held back with its limited easy hand-holding gameplay even after the developers added a streamlined, less story-heavy mode option. Mario & Luigi Brothership is a great return to the series' roots. It's so refreshing to see original character designs and stories return to an RPG Mario title. The story and world design is immaculate, but this game falls a bit short by having frustrating control changes, making Luigi's moveset extremely limited, and an unnecessarily long intro. Ace Attorney Investigations has one of the best overarching stories in any game I've ever played. The only reason that this didn't rank in the list is that it is over 10 years old with minimal changes in its remaster, but I cannot urge you enough. Play this game. It would have easily been top 5 if it was made in 2024. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree was a fantastic DLC expansion, but no DLC expansion should be crowned as Game of the Year. That's a completely different category. And of course, there are some games I didn't even get around to playing, unfortunately. If I had a PS5 to play, Astro Bot I know would have been one of the highest ranking games of the year, as the world platforming design in this game is sensational. Some others that I briefly dipped into but didn't fully cover were Arco, an innovative tactical RPG experience with Mesoamerican roots, Crypt Custodian, a cozy Metroidvania about animals' afterlives, Dungeon, a roguelike where you control a monkey exploring jungle ruins, and Pepper Grinder, a platformer where you move by drilling through walls. There are just too many more for me to list. I have to draw the line somewhere. I'm completely out of breath. But these made the biggest impression on me. Let's just take a moment to appreciate just how incredible the evolution of video game art direction has been. With the honourable mentions out of the way, it is finally time to crown this year's winner. It makes me absolutely delighted to unveil my 2024 Game of the Year as Metaphor Fantazio. Atlus already surprised everyone with just how amazing a remake could be with Persona 3 Reload, but then they also went ahead and created one of the best games of a debut series ever made. Metaphor is such a complete and tightly bound experience. Everything in this world is so cohesive and well done throughout the entire game experience. The story writing is imaginative and fantastic, setting you in a super unique race to the top of a political campaign in a medieval and fantasy land. By cruising on giant ship mechs called land runners across the land, cutting down your oppositions to work towards earning the loyalty of every common citizen in the world. Oh, and did I forget to mention it was all set in motion due to the villain of the game killing the former king to claim the throne, but then the former king left behind an ancient seal on the royal castle, lifting it into the air and etching his face into the bedrock in the sky. What a start to the game. The style of this game is just on another level. There's the usual expectation of the menus and the UI being extremely clean, but it takes it to another level by making the entire art direction, character animations, interactions, enemy and bosses having such inspired designs. It all has so much unique identity. Something I really enjoy about this game lies behind the inspiration of the first major boss that you battle. This boss's design is actually inspired by real-life medieval painting, blending into the game theme seamlessly that I didn't even know this until making this video. But there's one simple reason why Metaphor takes the cake over Persona 3 Reload and every other game on this list. The gameplay is simply better. The combat fighting is so addictingly fun and refreshing, the world exploration and side quests are plentiful, and the main story is a great adventure from start to finish. In combat, you have a set amount of turns displayed at the top of the screen. The game gives you the flexibility of choosing between using your character in their set order or by changing it up by passing or hitting weaknesses, allowing you to fight in various combinations that you desire. There's also the impressive archetype system which you can apply to every single team member that you get. You can completely change up any team member's fighting style to your liking. The music in this game really elevates the gameplay to another level as well. Often in video game music boss fights and intense themes, the soundtrack will incorporate opera vocals to really sell the tone of the songs. But this entire soundtrack utilized a full-blown human vocal orchestra, with the lyrics being sung in Esperanto and even being chanted by a Buddhist monk. Having so many human voice layers just belt out notes makes all the difference for setting the tone of these fight themes. There's really no comparison. One of my favorite parts of this story in the game is when a rival political candidate rolls up to you on a giant land runner, demanding you fight them immediately as they try to force you out of the running. These fights are some of the best in the game, and it is accompanied by one of the best video game battle themes ever made. It gives me goosebumps every fight.
I show no mercy. Are you prepared?
Let's
won't
do
hold
this
back.
fair and square.
But by far, the biggest disappointment is no romancing. What did they do to my dating simulator? Just joking, I actually think this is a positive of the game, and I'm glad it remained exclusive to the Persona series. This game is certainly grindy, and some might find the sheer amount of battling gameplay a little bit overwhelming. Another slight downside to the game is definitely the sound effects used. While the soundtrack has so much identity by incorporating an entire chorus orchestra which is so on theme, a lot of the sound effects used, particularly in battle, are just ripped directly from the Persona series. It's not a huge downside, but it just feels a little bit out of place when literally everything else in the game is so consistent with its own signature medieval fantasy identity. But these are very minor nitpicks. All of these reasons and more are exactly why I think Metaphor deserves winning the Game Awards Best Narrative, Art Direction, and RPG Game Awards, alongside being my pick for the Game of the Year and contributing to making 2024 one of the best years for gaming ever. And there we have it. The top game of 2024 perfectly encapsulates how a lot of these games were actually the best in their genre. The funny thing is, I didn't even intentionally try to include such a wide variety of games spanning so many genres for this list. All of my game experiences were just so varied and expansive in 2024, which is exactly why I think it's so amazing. And that's exactly why I think it's one of the best years in gaming history. What was your pick for Game of the Year 2024? Let me know in the comments below what title drew you in the most, especially if I didn't cover it in this video. I'd love more suggestions. If the video helped pique your interest for a new game to pick up, be sure to like and subscribe, and also let me know in the comments below what you plan to play. Thank you so much for watching through this entire video. I appreciate the support immensely for these longer creative videos I enjoy making. Comment 2024 games wowed me to let me know you watched the entire video. It's exciting to look ahead and see what games in 2025 will bring to the table, but for now, thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.